We're going to get started. Our next presenter is Clancy Cavnar. Clancy has graduated from JFK University with a doctoral degree in clinical psychology. She also has a master's degree in counseling and a Master of Fine Art from the San Francisco Art Institute in painting. She will be presenting the effects of participation in ayahuasca rituals on gays and lesbians' self-perception.
Thank you very much. So I'm basically just going to be presenting from this, reading from my own PowerPoint. Ayahuasca has become, I'm going to summarize some things because I think I have a few too many slides. And also I wanted to point out these are also my paintings up here if you want to see them later. And I have some cards out front if you want to buy some. Okay. The use of ayahuasca has grown for physical and emotional healing, religious practice, and shamanic deeds, and research into the anthropological and biomedical aspects of ayahuasca has dramatically increased. And among this current group of ayahuasca users are gay and lesbian people using ayahuasca in neo-shamanic circles and in the organized Brazilian ayahuasca religions, which is Santo Daime, UDV, and Barquinha, but that's not international. Based on the T, despite the rise in studies on ayahuasca, the stories of gay people who use it have rarely been told. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about the early use of psychedelics with gay people. And the main use, the early use of LSD and some other things was to do conversion therapy or reparative therapy, which just recently Spitzer, who came out with a report in 2001, repudiate his study. So there's really no basis for trying to do reparative therapy on gay people, but that's something that's been used for. Freud first thought that homosexuality could be cured using hypnosis, and there was a doctor, Dr. Steineck, who tried to transplant testicles of straight people onto gay men, thinking that would change them. It didn't. Early psychoanalysts did not assume that homosexuality was pathological, but in the 20s and 30s it started to be defined as a perversion. In 2001, the Surgeon General of the United States agreed with the American Psychological Association, saying conversion therapy had no scientific justification. So Martin in 1962 reported that 7 out of the 12 subjects he treated with LSD became primarily heterosexual. And all these studies that have these positive results are sort of the same reason that Spitzer's result was not valid, is that you ask the people afterwards who have been trying so hard to turn straight, and they say, yes, I'm now straight, but their self-reports need to be backed up and followed up, and there just wasn't any kind of proof of that. Stafford and Golightly treated homosexuals with LSD and found that they either achieved peace with their orientation or became heterosexual. So it was like it either clarified their issues for them. And Alpert, 1969, treated a gay man who he's written a report, and it was reputed to be himself, where the patient was encouraged to have sex with a woman during his LSD session, and was shown pictures of women and encouraged to feel positively about them. And he had partial success, he said, he maintained heterosexuality except for 2 incidents 5 years later where he said he was testing, the subject was testing to see if he was really gay or not. Masters in Houston, I don't know, 1966, did experiments with peyote that they felt had some success in changing sexual orientation in gay men. They claimed that the subjects who did not change orientation had considerable investment in their homosexuality and were unable to capitalize on gains made during treatment. Graf in 2000 treated homosexuals dissatisfied with their orientation with LSD. He believed, I don't know if that was done in 2000, but that's when the report was. He believed that fear of vagina dentata was prevalent in gay men and that lesbianism was related to a desire to be close to the mother. So it was like mixing psychological theory with psychedelic drugs and then giving them to gay people. So this is the rationale for my study. Ayahuasca has a tendency to incite religious or spiritual feelings, and it often causes shifts in identity and personal psychological insights. Gay and lesbian populations have suffered oppression for many years and report self-esteem problems and identity issues. research into the experiences of gay and lesbian ayahuasca users can help show how this minority understands issues of identity and spiritual development, and it could help clinicians and researchers understand how identity is influenced in the context of religious experience and rituals, and how sexual minorities navigate conflicts with religious doctrine and community internally and externally. So the way that I did my study was I interviewed 17 gay and lesbian people who had used ayahuasca with at least one other person in the past 3 years. And they were from both Santo Daime and neo-shamanic circles, and I got the people through advertising on the internet. 17 interviews were conducted, 12 gay men, 5 women, 14 white, 1 Mexican, white biracial, 1 Latino, 1 Native American, and they lived mostly in the United States. 1 was living in Africa at the time, and they were all Americans except a Brazilian, an Italian, and a Canadian. A little bit about Santo Daime for people that don't know. It's a Christian religion, and it's from a very conservative area of the Amazon. It's hierarchical, and the leaders have mystical authority. They're called padrinos, and they're very respected, and it's a church kind of based on Catholicism as part of the way the prayers go. 1 major leader, Alex Polari, has expressed anti-gay sentiments in a book that he wrote, referring to gays as degenerates, and echoing the Sofloris's branch founder, who's known as Padrino Sebastião, who also said that homosexuality was something, a bad thing. He wrote a book called Forest of Visions, Alex Polari did. But at least 2 members of the leadership of Santo Daime practice polygamy. Padrino Alfredo, the leader of the main international branch of Santo Daime, said in a newspaper interview, "I cannot judge the homosexual who is faithful to the doctrine. We trust his evolution as a divine being." So that's not so bad. In the United States, 1 gay couple has been, one that I know of, I don't know if there's more, has been married in church, and the church culture matches the liberal alternative lifestyles of many of the members. So it's very conservative in Brazil, and has hippies in the United States. Shamanism. The participants in this research experienced ayahuasca rituals conducted either at a center for this purpose in Peru or with a shaman who visited the United States. They were not members of the communities where the shamans live, and they didn't have an idea of what the views on homosexuality were of those cultures. The shamans did not express their views on sexual orientation to the participants interviewed. Some shamans were from the United States or Canada, and others were native to South America. Several participants felt that South American culture was homophobic, and that the Peruvian shaman may have been as well, but they didn't confront them on it. This is the breakdown of the participations. 1 participant was in an Afro-religious ayahuasca group that I can't remember the name of, but it's an African name, kind of based on the Orishas. So I broke it down into 10 categories, which I'm going to go quickly through. The experiences and my questions were based on these. On the issue of identity in general, the participants all had positive reflections on changes to their identity, some seeing themselves as divine beings and healers working on the spirit plane. Participants in both Santo Daime and shaman circles achieved new identities, which they valued within their ayahuasca-using communities. I've always felt I was from another planet, growing up fat, gay, and unathletic. Daime showed me I have a mission on Earth. And another quote is, "My identity shifted so profoundly it was shocking to me." Then I asked more specifically about their identity regarding sexual orientation. The participants reported that ayahuasca helped with feelings of shame common to gays. Some said it helped them to be more comfortable with gender fluidity. Some participants felt a deep affirmation of their sexual orientation and a clarity about this issue. 1 person said, "I'm more loving, comfortable, and familiar with myself and my sexual expression." And another said, "I realize that my sexuality is so healthy, so intrinsic, so much a part of me, not to be expressed or embraced is letting myself live in a world with 1 part of me damped down and unexpressed." On the issue of sexuality in general, 2 outcomes in general were observed. 2 participants no longer felt sexual. 1 was a daimista, the other followed shamanic dietas. The rest felt that their sexual lives were enhanced, particularly by increasing personal connection with a partner. One respondent noted that as a result of taking ayahuasca, he had increased safer sex practices. I have had a profound opening in terms of, this is a quote from someone, I have had a profound opening in terms of my own sexuality. I had not known I was sexually abused as a child. Sexuality and spirituality are unified in a way they never were before. And another said, it freed me from having sex for sex's sake. It's about love now. I asked about how did they feel with the other group members that they drank with. All participants were out about their sexual orientation with the groups they drank with in the United States. Some disguised or did not mention their orientation to the visiting shaman. Daimistas also said they did not discuss their sexual orientation with Brazilian Daimistas. They noted that it seemed Brazilians were uncomfortable with homosexuality. One said, I feel some church members are careful around me. I do not touch people in ceremonies because that might be misinterpreted. And someone else said, I've had nothing but complete acceptance and complete unconditional support and friendship in Santo Daime. I asked about how did they feel about the way that their group believed, or the beliefs of the group about sexual orientation. Participants in Santo Daime tended to ignore negative statements related to sexual orientation or statements that characterize gay people as sinners, attributing such ideas to homophobic culture of Brazil. People who drank with shamans most often did not know the shaman's view on homosexuality. One person said, spirituality that can't deal with sexuality doesn't seem valid to me. And someone else said, I find it hard to believe that someone working with ayahuasca would have that kind of homophobic viewpoint. Ayahuasca will cure you of it. Another said, I was married to my gay partner in Santo Daime Church. I ignore the parts of Christianity that I view as perversions of Christ's message. Basically, people chose what they wanted to take from it. The impact on their lives I asked about, and participants used many superlatives. Self-acceptance ranked high on changes affected. One respondent confronted her childhood sexual abuser, another gave up addictions to sex and pornography, and no one reported any negative effects on their life. Someone said it was the most healing thing I've ever experienced. I put the pieces of my life back together, purged things holding me back. Another said, I arrived in my body for the first time. Everything in my life is completely and totally different than it was. And another said, every area of my life has changed. I eat healthier, stopped taking meds, and tried to be more green. I asked what they found uncomfortable about using ayahuasca in rituals. They said, several people said the legal issues around ayahuasca use in the U.S. made them uncomfortable. Respondents from Santo Daime cited the patriarchal and hierarchical nature of the religion and lack of accountability of leaders around money and sexual improprieties. Those who drank with shamans also commented on discomfort with stories of sexual opportunism of the shamans. Someone said, I felt uncomfortable with elements of dogma, judgment, and the patriarchal paradigm of Santo Daime. Another said, I felt uncomfortable with the emphasis on spirituality. That was just one person, so that was kind of an outlying response. I asked what other people might notice about them as a result of them taking ayahuasca. Since they first drank, respondents noticed an increase in humility and ability to listen, and said that others sought them out for spiritual counsel. People said, wow, you seem grounded, you seem much more present. Another said, I have the courage to open my mouth now and recognize and express negative feelings. My friends say, wow, you have grown in your capacity to be honest. Third one says, I'm less of an asshole, more mellow. So this is basically very, very positive responses from everybody on almost all my questions. But there's some reasons for that, maybe. The study was conducted on self-identified gay people living or raised or currently living in North America who answered an ad on the internet for gay ayahuasca users. So that's not a very big group of people that are interested in ayahuasca and are gay. People who had negative experiences are less likely to be reading ayahuasca notice boards and newsletters or to respond to calls from ayahuasca researchers. One thing, I tried to find equal numbers of men and women, but I had many more men. And it might be because the women that I wanted to include as lesbians said that they were bisexual, and I didn't want to include bisexuals just for clarity, so it's more common for women who sleep with women to identify as bisexual, even if they only sleep with women. This research did not include people who had converted to heterosexuality after joining a church or after more extensive involvement in shamanic circles. Anecdotal reports state that after joining Santo Daime, some gay and lesbian people become asexual, and this research did not include those people unless they continue to identify as gay or lesbian. And the situation in Brazil is very different, with members of Ayahuasca religions sometimes choosing to adopt strict lifestyles and conforming to group expectations and ideals. So these are my conclusions. Of all of the 17 had positive statements to varying degrees about the effect of ayahuasca on their identity and their relationship to their sexual orientation. Sexuality was affected by either being enhanced or losing importance. For 16 participants, spirituality was greatly enhanced by ayahuasca use. One respondent continued to feel alienated by spiritual focus. All reported very positive effects of ayahuasca practice on their lives, including such benefits as enhanced relationships, increase in humility and calmness, and a sense of purpose. The cultural differences with South American countries in regard to negative views of homosexuals were cited as issues for several respondents. Some hid their orientation from the shaman or church members when in South America. Shamanic users had less perception of anti-gay dogma or beliefs than Santo Daime practitioners. Participants reported negative experiences with lack of accountability for leaders' financial and sexual improprieties, homophobia and patriarchy in the Santo Daime setting, as well as sexual opportunism and assumed or feared homophobia of the shamans. Suggestions for future research. Research comparing gay and lesbian ayahuasca users in South America would illuminate how cultural differences impact interpretations of experience. No members of the UDV were included in this study. The UDV has officially stated in an internal document, "We can never agree with the practice of homosexuality as it goes against the natural origin of human existence." Yet they welcome gay members who seek to improve themselves. And the question could be asked, how do gay members perceive and work with this fact? Research on people who chose a straight lifestyle after encountering ayahuasca could reveal how accommodations are made and how successful these are. And last question could be, could ayahuasca be used in therapeutic settings by gay and lesbian people experiencing identity issues? So that's my presentation. And okay, no, that's fine. So I'll take any questions if anyone has them.
There seems to be a lot of insights on their sexuality. Did all the people you interview have insights on their sexuality, or were you specifically looking for people who have things?
I specifically asked everyone if that question, did it have any effect? So they all had an answer. Any other question? Yeah.
Did the effort on the part of some of the participants in the shamanic ceremonies to conceal their sexual orientation because of anticipated disapproval by the shaman, did that have any effect on the actual session? In other words, something that they're trying to repress, I'm wondering would the likelihood be that it would in fact come out under those circumstances?
Yeah, I think their experience was to be in a dark room, drink ayahuasca, have the shaman sing and do a healing. So they didn't really say, I'm having problems with my boyfriend, or, I think it was, maybe they thought about it, but...
So heavily structured experience that doesn't...
Yeah. I think it's just in talking to the shaman after, or something like that. Yeah?
This is not a question so much as a little short story, but when I was in South America, I had the privilege to host Antonio T. in my hotel room because he had nowhere else to stay. And I asked him if there were gay people among the Shar, the Jivaro in Ecuador. And his response was, "Oh no, there's no homosexuals amongst my people. Maybe they're in the capital." And we're sitting there quietly on the Amazon. I said, "Well, are you aware of any men amongst your people who have sex with other men?" And then he said, "Oh yeah, that happens." And then I asked if there are men who don't take wives and live with other men. And he says, "Yes, that occasionally happens."
So did he understand what homosexual was?
Well, he understood that his next phrase was, he said something like, just because someone is different, we don't think of them as being a different kind of human. And I would suggest that the shamans there's probably more indigenous thoughts like this. They just don't make this kind of representation.
Yeah, I heard from someone.
It's not a category in their linguistic toolbox.
I did hear from somebody else at a different conference that it was known that guys would go off with guys in some Indian tribes.
That's one of your main critiques of the conversion therapy studies, that they didn't have triangulation, it was just sort of self-report. Is your sense that your study results would be different with more triangulation or even more sort of like long-term follow-up? Would these reports of change in sexuality be diminished over time, or do they persist? Or
Well, I think it's that the changes are not a change in sexual orientation. So it's just saying that the changes, I think they're like other psychological changes where maybe they feel great after they drank ayahuasca and say, wow, I'm going to tell everyone I'm gay now. There's 2 people that came out as a result of drinking ayahuasca, and maybe they tell people and maybe they would regret it after, you know, the feeling wore off. So there's always things like that. But I think it's more that the basic change from gay to straight, to say that is, I mean, you can, if you follow the people and see did they engage in gay relationships afterwards, but this would be more like, did you still feel good about being gay? And probably it's much more of a gray area for people who have a problem feeling that way. Any more questions? Yeah?
Was there anything that you learned through your research that surprised you or that you weren't expecting?
You know, I have to say that the research was so thoroughly fit with my hypothesis or whatever that I felt a little like I needed to find somebody who said, no, I realized that was all the wrong path for me or whatever, but really nobody said that. The most, at the other end of that was people who just said, I don't even have sex anymore. I've decided that that's a waste of time and it's not where I'm going. But yeah, I think the group was only 17 people, of people that were so interested in it and took the time to do an hour interview for no money. And so I had enthusiasts. It was kind of a very picked group.
For the one person who expressed discomfort with a spiritual worldview, like what do you attribute that? Like,
Block in his head. I couldn't understand because he I don't know, he just felt a lot of pressure to be spiritual, and he felt he got other benefits, health benefits and mood benefits, but he couldn't picture beings in the sky that were talking to him like several people in my research did.
Had a very materialist worldview, so for him it was a chemical experience.
He was interested in healing, but he didn't see it as, I'm not sure, I think it was just, maybe his group was very new age and he felt alienated from those ideas, or I'm not sure. Yeah?
Have you thought of running a research project, to determine whether, I was put up there on one of your slides there, of whether ayahuasca could cure homophobia? That would be an interesting study.
Yeah, well, then we have the instance of the UDV who all drink ayahuasca twice a month and came out with a statement saying it's bad and the human race might die out. So it's drinking a lot of it doesn't seem, I mean, if it was their goal, maybe,
It was
but
slightly facetious.
yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
I just want you to suggest to mention the book that we are crediting.
Yes, I am co-editing a book with Pia Labachi here on the expansion of ayahuasca shamanism. It's about how the ideas of shamans in South America and Amazon are influenced by people who are visiting, and also how the ideas are interpreted by the visitors. So it's very interesting.
It has a paper about the subject.
And has a paper about the subject.
What do you hear?